So thou, O son of man, I have set thee a watchman unto the house of Israel. Therefore thou shalt hear the word of my mouth, and warn them from me.
Have no fellowship with the unfruitful works of darkness, but rather expose them.
Coming to you from an undisclosed location in Middle Tennessee and examining current events from a biblical perspective, this is Bible News Radio with your hosts, Randall and Stacy Harp.
All right, hey everybody. I want to welcome you to today's edition of Bible News Radio. Hope your guys are having a great day. I really do. And I hope today that we can go ahead and give you some inspiration and education in a way and on a topic that is so divisive in our culture today. Yeah, it is. I am your host, Stacy Lynn Harp, and I am coming to you from Tennessee. And I'm going to talk to you today, part 6 on the marketing of homosexuality to America. Again, everything is based on this book here called After the Ball: How America Will Conquer Its Fear and Hatred of Gays in the 1990s. And I have to tell you, this was written by 2 homosexual activists. And every quote that you're going to see in this episode today comes from this book. This isn't from the Christian right that I'm telling you this info. This is from the homosexual activists' own material. It's their words. I am just your messenger with big fluffy hair. Yeah, I am. So do me a favor, okay? Do me a favor, go ahead and please share this out, because you know what? The social media platforms, they like to spike it. And we've even tried to promote this, right? We've even tried to pay and boost our show, especially on this topic, and Facebook. They won't take our money. True story. Oh, it's kind of funny, actually. So today, the main thing that we're going to be talking about, we've been looking at in the last 5 episodes of this series that I suspect is going to be a lot longer than 6 or 7 episodes. I'm thinking at this point it could be at least 20. I don't know. But here's the thing. I want to tell you that last week when we talked about this, we talked about the 8 practical principles for the persuasion of straights. So, and it was called the strategy of waging peace. 8 practical principles for the persuasion of straights. Last week we looked at the first 3 things. Yeah, the first 3 principles. Today we're going to look at principle 4 and 5. So get your, you can screenshot any of the images that come up. You have my permission to share it out. You have my permission to go in back to this episode, screenshot everything. I am going to make all of this available in a handout at some point, okay? Just so you know. But you need to know the stuff, because if you don't, then it's not helpful. Let's put it this way. Ephesians 5:11 says to expose the unfruitful deeds of darkness. That really, you guys, is my call in life, and it is often a very misunderstood and very lonely call. And yet I have to tell you honestly that I'm okay with that. They killed the prophets before us, right? And just saying, when you know this stuff, it makes you stronger, and it helps you to see the unfruitful deeds of darkness the way exactly how they did it, right? And you guys, this is going to strengthen you in your faith. It will. If you're a follower of Christ, this will definitely strengthen you in your faith, because when you understand how intentional this was, it will open your eyes, because you'll begin to look around and go, oh my gosh, there's that jamming tactic. There's that desensitization tactic. Oh, there's that conversion tactic. And this is what they did, and this is what the book is all about. I mean, it's genius. I was telling Randall, I said, it's genius. I mean, it really is. So anyway, I want to thank you guys for joining me again. Excuse me. And I want to just say hi to you. Hi to Darren over on Facebook, and I really appreciate you sharing this out on your ministry page over there. And Stephanie and Mia, Vicky, Melanie, Diane, and let's see who else, Joni. I don't know if that's somebody who's real or if that's a bot. Robert, anyway, whoever you are, thank you for coming in and for sharing this out. And if you guys don't mind, even, if you're, I know most of you are on Periscope, but if you wouldn't mind going into Facebook after the show and sharing this from our Bible News Radio page on your Facebook page, that would be awesome, because Facebook is just kind of, I just want to go to Facebook. And yet at the same time, I like Facebook, so what can I say? And the mayor is here too. Hey, Paul. Nice to see you. All right, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to share this myself on Facebook. So let me go ahead and do that first, and then we'll go ahead and begin and get into today's lesson. Okay. All right, so I'm just going to write here the marketing of homosexuality to America, part 6. That way my people know what it's about. And we hit enter. There we go. All right. Okay. Well, there was an interesting article today, and I want to open with the article, and then we'll get into this, because the article really fits with this whole show. Actually, it's classic. I was looking at this. I was like, oh my gosh, this can't get any better than this article. So Randall, it's the one about Ellen.
Yeah.
That I got here. A couple of you, you probably heard me talk about this a couple of weeks ago. It was last month that there was this story that was about this homosexual valedictorian that was, quote, forced out of his home because he was gay. And my dog's wanting to play right now. Anyway, so today over on NBC News website, actually it was posted yesterday, there was an update about this guy. Hey, Jennifer, nice to see you. And, there's some other people that came in too. Let's see, Jennifer, Frank, Rich, hi Rich. All right, anyway, okay. So anyway, this valedictorian, he was, quote, forced out of his home. And so there was an update about this. So he's getting support from Ellen DeGeneres. Keep this in mind. Okay, you're going to see this later in the presentation. So it says here, Seth Owen, the gay valedictorian whose heart-wrenching story went viral last month, got a pleasant surprise while appearing on the Ellen DeGeneres show. And I'm going to go ahead, and we're not going to play the video just for sake of time. I'll just read it. It says, the gay valedictorian whose story went viral this summer after he was forced out of his home and couldn't pay for college made an appearance Monday on the Ellen DeGeneres show. The Emmy-winning talk show host awarded Seth Owen, 18, now a freshman at Georgetown, $25,000 to add to the college scholarship fund he plans to create for LGBTQ students who, like him, do not have the financial support of their parents. Owen talked to DeGeneres about how his parents found out about his sexuality and subsequently sent him to a religious, quote, gay conversion therapy, unquote, program. So-called conversion therapy is a medically debunked practice that attempts to change one's sexual orientation or gender identity. In my sophomore year of high school, my dad went through my phone and found out that I was gay. First, I have to say this. He was a kid in high school. A parent has a right to go through their kid's phone, just so you know. That's my opinion. You can disagree with it, but you're under my roof, kid. I'm paying the bills. The father goes through the phone. Anyway, he found out that his son was gay. Okay. Owen told DeGeneres, who was a lesbian, so they sent me to conversion therapy, and then after a few months, that ended. The dangerous part about that is, as a patient, I believe that this healthcare professional was doing what was best for me. After disagreeing with the teachings of his family's anti-gay church in February, in the middle of his senior year of high school in Jacksonville, Florida, Owen was forced to move out of his parents' home. He told DeGeneres he couch surfed with friends for a while and then moved in with his best friend's family. A few weeks after leaving his parents' house, Owen said his dream of attending Georgetown, where he had already been accepted, was put into jeopardy. When his financial aid package arrived, he recalled it had been determined based on the expected contribution of his family, who would no longer be contributing. That's when his former teacher and mentor, Jane Martin, set up a GoFundMe page to raise money for his tuition, hoping to, as she put it, quote, make the impossible possible. Cry me a river. Martin's original goal was to raise $20,000, but after news outlets across the country reported on his heart-wrenching story, his fundraising total skyrocketed to more than $140,000. In early August, much to the delight of Owen Martin and people across the country who were following the story, Georgetown decided to offer Owen a full scholarship. So there you go. Whine that you're gay and your parents threw you out because of conversion therapy, and you get a free scholarship to college. Right? And if you're going to hate me, don't hate me, because this kid actually had a choice. First of all, he's 18, he's an adult, so he should be a man and go live on his own, in my opinion. I know I'm not a parent. Who am I to say? But you know what? Hey, I moved out when I was 18. If I can do it and live on my own, so can some other bratty kid like that. But the bottom line is he didn't want to abide by his parents' rules, and they told him, you either, go to this church of ours or leave. They gave him an ultimatum, and the parents stuck to it. But because they're Baptist horrible Christians, he brought it to the media, and of course they made him the big hero, right? So, and all that. So, anyway, so this is important, because looking at this book, we're going to show you why this is important, because this story could be written completely different. It could have been written from a completely different perspective, and not one article that I have read has quoted the parents. So I'm just going to say that we only are hearing one side, so we can only hear one side, and believe me, I'm pretty sure the parents have another side of the story. But whatever, I'm sure they're thrilled that their money doesn't have to pay for his education now that he got it handed to him on a platter because he whined gay. All right, so you want to comment? Well, it's hard not to, but...
Yeah, so let me get this straight. So there's this GoFundMe campaign. It got $140,000.
Yep.
Now Georgetown's giving a scholarship, and Ellen's giving him an additional $25,000.
Yep.
So this kid has scholarship, no tuition fees, and he's got $165,000 to
right. He's gonna
help him with groceries and
okay, but his
stuff.
plan though is to open up a support for other kids in his situation. Basically, what was left over, that's what he said in the interview. Whatever's left over, he's gonna put back towards fighting against the hate and oppression of bigotry, hateful Christian families like his own.
Yeah,
that fed and clothed them his whole life and all that. So
now, yeah.
He's a snot. He's a snot. He's a snot. Kid's a snot.
And he realized that the funding wouldn't be there. Well, the funding wouldn't. I guess I don't know. The parents refused to fund. I guess it's just based on him living at home.
Right.
And since he chose not to do that.
Right. He chose to leave. He wasn't thrown out. He chose to leave. If you look at the articles that were fair, he chose to leave.
Yeah, it wasn't
his parents didn't throw him out.
Well, forced out with the one made him.
He chose to leave because
Right.
his parents wanted him to go to church, and he wanted to go to a different church that affirmed his homosexuality. So anyway, but this you guys plays into this book here. It's perfect. I mean, it's absolutely perfect. I got a million of these, but anyway. Okay, so let's look at. Let's do a quick review. Okay, you can pull up the. I know, hey you guys, I typed all this stuff out for you so you could read it. All right, so this is last week when we left off. We are looking in the section of this book written by two homosexual activist marketers. They're brilliant guys. In the section titled The Strategy of Waging Peace, 8 Practical Principles for the Persuasion of Straights. That's the goal. Remember? The persuasion of straights. Oh, you used that, huh? That was not my graphic, you guys, just so you know. Mine was purple. But anyway, that's okay. It looks all right. All right, so quick review. Last week we covered principles 1, 2, and 3. Principle 1 was just don't just express yourself, communicate, right? So this in short, you can go back to watch last week's and you can get the more in-depth thing, was basically, they were talking about how homosexuals in private, they'll express themselves as, gay or whatever, but outwardly in the public, they need to communicate that they are. Principle 2 was an interesting one. Seek ye not the saved nor the damned, appeal to the skeptics. This was basically where they outlined those who are ambivalent about homosexuality, those who are completely opposed to it, and those who who are actually already on their side. And so the goal there was to appeal to the skeptics, the middle, the ambivalent, the middle of the road. And then principle 3 was keep talking. No matter how much, whenever you can, keep talking about being gay, keep talking about how great it is, just keep talk. And then at the end of the presentation in this section, they actually showed how they intentionally targeted conservative biblical churches with the message that they are evil, pretty much, and they targeted and they praised the moderate churches like the Presbyterian Church and other churches that they knew would go on their side. So there was an intentional targeting of Christian biblical churches, and then these 3 principles that we looked at in episode 5. So you can go back to my YouTube channel, youtube.com/Bible News Radio. I got 5 episodes there, all on a play sheet. You can listen to me for 5 whole hours, actually over 5 hours, and do this. So this is what we're going to do here. Today we're looking at principle 4 and 5. So principle 4 is titled, Keep the Message Focused. You're a homosexual, not a whale. Now this is interesting. This was a very interesting section to read here, and I paraphrased a little bit of it. So the idea here is that the authors of After the Ball decry any attachment of a homosexuals to smaller groups than theirs. And they say that these groups are often fringe and they don't care about homosexual rights. So in order for desensitization to work, the focus has to be on homosexual rights and only that. In fact, he gives a huge list of things, which I can't remember if I typed it out or not, because I spent quite some time typing all these quotes. But anyway, on page 180, he goes on to say, so when we say talk about homosexuality, we mean talk about gay rights issues and nothing more. Be single-minded. Now, this is, when I read this, I was like, Christians? Hello? We are supposed to be, single-minded people, not double-minded in all of our ways, like the book of James talks about. Here, this is actually a biblical principle for them to be single-minded, right? We're supposed to be single-minded about the gospel and our service to Christ. The activists here flat out said, so when we say talk about homosexuality, we mean talk about gay rights issues and nothing more. Be single-minded. And he actually is explaining in this section the following. Wayne Olson exhorts fellow activists in a 1986 Christopher Street article with the following bad advice. Now, he's disagreeing with this advice, but this is the advice that Wayne Olson gave. Show throughout public debates on gay rights that you identify with all those who are persecuted unjustly, that you advocate rights for all human beings, not just homosexuals. Talk about racism, sexism, militarism, poverty, and all the conditions that oppress the unempowered. A victory for any oppressed group is a victory for all. Now, Kirk and Madsen, they have taken issue with what Wayne Olson said, but this is what the conventional wisdom of the day was when Wayne actually did this. So if you think about it, it's kind of interesting because the gay rights movement has been always associated with all these fringe little groups that he mentions. Now, Michael Denny, I'm not sure if that's how you say it, but anyway, the author's gone to quote Michael Denny, who wrote the following, has rightly perceived, quote, we have no natural allies and therefore cannot rely on the assistance of any group. We have only tactical allies, people who do not want barbarous things done to us because they fear the same thing may someday be done to them. So it's a very astute observation. The authors are basically saying just this. Look, we need to talk about homosexuality, just keep talking about it and all that. But we got to be very careful with how we present this to the public because our goal is to keep the message focused on homosexuality, not on anything else.
Gay rights.
Right. On gay rights. Right, exactly. So he goes on to say on page 182, think twice about public association with any group that is generally unpopular, smaller than the gay community, and concerned with issues remote from and more ephemeral than those that must permanently concern the gay community. Now, what's funny is that we have all these associations of the gay community associated to all these other things, but Kirk and Madsen, their goal was to get them away from that model to make sure that they're only focusing on gay rights. So he goes on to say on page 182, the movement should eagerly ally itself with large mainstream groups that can actually advance our interests. For example, the Democratic Party, the National Organization for Women, or the Presbyterian Church. Now, I find this extremely interesting that those three things are listed because that's exactly what they've done. If you're even, not even a political observer that much, you can see clearly the Democratic Party is the party of homosexual rights and advocacy. The Republican Party generally isn't, although there is a faction of the Republican Party with the log cabin Republicans that have come out, in recent years, and they've gotten more emboldened on the Republican side, saying, "Hey, we're conservative, but we're for gay rights, and so don't hate us." Ann Coulter happens to be somebody who is heavily associated with the log cabin Republicans herself, and she's actually taken a hit because of her association with the log cabin Republicans and being able to present to them and all that. So the Democratic Party, we already know, is the party of homosexual rights. The National Organization for Women is interesting too, because again, what do? They kill babies. That's their advocacy. That's the main thing that that the National Organization, I say for some women because they don't represent me at all, but they kill babies. That's their advocacy. Women's feminism, abortion. And so homosexuality and feminist radical rights groups like these, they lead to death, the behavior and the actions. And the Presbyterian Church, which, as we know, has had a lot of scandal in it, as well as other churches. But the Presbyterian Church, you can typically go there if you're homosexual, and it'll be fine. Even though there's been divisions within that too. There's factions of the Presbyterian Church. So the authors go on to say, be focused in your efforts to reach the public via mass media. In the minds of straights, we must be gay people, not leftists or whales. So talk about gay rights and leave it at that. So that's principle number 4. Principle number 5 takes a little bit longer to get through. It actually took me quite a while to get through this because there was so much. It was hard for me not just to type out the whole chapter. So principle 5 is portray gays as victims, not as aggressive challengers. And this is exactly what they have done. And it's brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant how they've done it. On page 183, the author says, in any campaign to win over the public, gays must be portrayed as victims in need of protection, so that straights will be inclined by reflex to adopt the role of protector. Okay, so the first thing is, and by the way, this I italicized. This was italicized in the book. I did bold a couple of things later to bring emphasis, but that was particularly italicized in the book after the ball. So gays must be portrayed as victims in need of protection. Okay? And my first question when I read that was, from what? What do they need protection from? If that section of the community is at such threat, I would already think that there would be some type of protection. They wouldn't have to have a massive media campaign to convince the world that they need protecting. But he tells you why. So that straights will be inclined by reflex to adopt the role of protector. I'm going to give you a perfect example. Yesterday, on my Facebook page, this exact thing took place. I got a phone call from a Sacramento Bee reporter who was trying to dig up dirt on a a Republican candidate who's running for governor in California. I happened to actually work on this guy's campaign. I didn't remember until after the call. I had to go through my Gmail to look it up. But the guy sounded gay when he called me up. And then when I found out where he was from, and then I did some research on him, I think he is gay. And I just said on my thing, oh, I got this guy who sounded like he was gay. Oh my gosh. You would have thought that I had set a rainbow flag on fire or something from the outcry of some people because I said he sounded gay. Why? Because that's so politically incorrect. How dare you say that he sounded gay? Well, he did sound gay. And doing research on the guy, it turns out all he does is advocate for gay rights and other stuff. So I think I was probably right, spot on. But what happened was some of my friends who are more liberal than me, which are most of them, by the way, well, why'd you point out that he sounded gay? What was the point of that? Instantly, jumped into protector mode of this guy and lost the whole stinking context of the reason I wrote my post, right? And what I did was I didn't portray him in a positive light, right? I didn't portray him as a victim. I actually portrayed him as somebody who's digging up dirt on this Republican candidate because that's exactly what he was doing. I recorded the phone call. He kept pressing me, are you sure you don't know who John Cox is? Are you sure, because it says here that he paid you this much money and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, I don't even know who the guy is because at the time I totally forgot. I mean, it was 11 years ago. Why is this gay reporter from the Sacramento Bee calling me up, trying to dig up dirt on a guy, Just saying. So anyway, it goes on to say here, page 183, the purpose of the victim imagery is to make straights feel very uncomfortable. That is to jam with shame the self-righteous pride that would ordinarily accompany and reward their anti-gay belligerents, and to lay groundwork for the process of conversion by helping straights identify with gays and sympathize with their underdog status. Okay? Note what I bolded there. Okay? Remember we talked about jamming, conversion, and desensitization, like in one of our first episodes. You can go back and you can watch it, okay? So the jamming, again, let me refresh your memory if you forgot what that is. That's basically where they give you two conflicting images to create in you a feeling of discomfort. So, like, for example, one of the images that they would give you is that the homosexual looks like, a conservative straight man, thereby creating conflict in you because that's not what you normally think of as a homosexual. Normally you think of a very feminine man, who's flamboyant and, all that. But you don't think of a straight-laced conservative guy as gay. So it jams you. It creates that conflict in you. And their hope is if you can just begin to accept it and go, oh, yeah, okay, that's not really what homosexuals is. I know homosexuals. They're nothing like that. Then they can slowly begin to convert your perception of what it is. And that's what they've done over the last 30 years. But they do it by trying to create shame in you, the irony of it all. Because earlier in the book, he talks about how we are filled with shame and stuff because we know essentially what we really are, but we want them to feel it. That's why they have these parades and all this other stuff. So in order to help create that shame, to portray gays as victims, not as aggressive challengers, they go ahead and they put the imagery out there that makes you, the straight person, say, oh my gosh, I feel awkward about this, and thereby they begin the process of conversion. So he goes on to say on page 183, in practical terms, this means that cocky, mustachioed leathermen, drag queens, and bull dykes would not appear in gay commercials and other public presentations. Conventional young people, middle-aged women, and older folks of all races would be featured, not to mention the parents and straight friends of gays. The marketing of homosexuality to America. There you are, people. So it's interesting because, what I love about the authors of this book, After the Ball, I totally love this book because they are so honest in here. They are absolutely honest in here about everything that they did. And here he is basically admitting, look, this is who our community is. Cocky, mustachioed leathermen, okay? Drag queens and bull dykes. And as a result, that's what people think of when they think of homosexuals and lesbians, right? That's what they think of. We need to change that image, even though the image that we want people to see has really nothing to do with reality. This is our image. And then they add down here, not to mention the parents and straight friends of gays. So they want to include it. So parents and friends of lesbians and gays, PFLAG. PFLAG is an organization that is basically an alliance organization. Stephanie wrote me earlier today. She's on my text message list, and she asked me, how have they marketed homosexuality to children? Well, one of the ways that they're doing this, and they've done it, is through GLSEN, which stands for the Gay, Lesbian, Straight Education Network. So the gay, lesbian, straight, that straight in GLSEN, which all the stuff has been put into schools, from kindergarten down. I mean, GLSEN's totally infiltrated the schools. But the Gay, Lesbian, Straight Education Network is part of this campaign because they called in the straights. Oh, okay, the straights or the heterosexuals are the ones who actually are, oh, okay, my buddy here, my BFF, they don't hate me or whatever. And I remember it was probably, I don't know how many years ago. It had to be a long time ago. It was 10 or 11 years ago, probably. I was invited to go speak at a Christian Association of Educators conference, and I spoke on this topic of the gay agenda, and I spoke to probably hundreds of kids. There's thousands at the event, but I just had a workshop that I had. And when I went and I presented this material to the kids in high school who were part of the Gay Straight Alliance classes, I will never forget, I had a kid come up to me after the class, and he said to me, I want you to know that I'm a Christian and I'm an ally. And I said, you are? And I said, why is that? He said, because I feel forced to be. He was feeling pressured by the GLSEN campaign to go in there and to be an ally, even though he told me he completely disagreed with it because it goes against his biblical beliefs. So, I mean, it's all over. And Stephanie, just so you know, if you watch the last 5 episodes, there's more information in there. But there is a huge marketing campaign towards kids. It's beginning with kids. And the problem is that if you market unnatural belief to kids, and you begin to brainwash them young, like they do in communist countries, they're confused, which is why we have a lot of confusion in the youth today, especially kids under 30, because they've been marketed it their whole life. You have that issue, and it's a losing battle, and I think in part because the church hasn't done their job right. It's very subtle, actually very subtle. All right, so going forward on page 184, the authors go on to say, one could also argue that lesbians should be featured more prominently than gay men in the early stages of the media campaign. Who can tell me what took place in 1997? I can tell you what happened in 1997. Guess who came out as a lesbian on TV? Very first homosexual character to profess publicly her lesbianism. Who was it? You guys remember? Remember who it was, right? I mentioned her earlier in the article I read. Ellen DeGeneres. They made a big joke about it. In fact, I'll never forget it because I loved the scene. It was her original Ellen show. She actually came out, she pulled the microphone to her thing and said, "I'm gay." And it was quiet. And they did it in a funny way. And it actually made a lot of ratings. And then, of course, Ellen got some kickback in her profession as a result. But it actually hasn't hurt her that much because she's currently got a TV show. Right, Ellen. So they're saying here, basically, one could argue that lesbians should be featured more prominently than gay men in the early stages of the media campaign because lesbians may be more credible objects of sympathy. Okay?
Yes, Paul, Periscope is working.
And then It says, it cannot go without that should be saying, I obviously messed the ing. It cannot go without saying, incidentally, that groups on the farthest margins of acceptability, such as NAMBLA, which stands for the North American Man-Boy Love Association, North American Man-Boy Love Association, whose motto is sex before 8, or it's too late, must play no part at all in such a campaign. Suspected child molesters will never look like victims. Now, this is funny to me because NAMBLA is actually very heavily associated with the homosexual lobby. And they have done everything to bury that connection. So the author of this book, he says, and to his credit, that they believe that NAMBLA is the farthest margins of acceptability, except for the fact that they admit that NAMBLA are child molesters. Don't miss that.
Suspected.
Well, they're suspected child molesters. The North American Man-Boy Love Association. And I've shared this before, and I got to call Bob up, and I got to get him on the show. My friend Bob Hamer, retired FBI agent, wrote a book called The Last Undercover. He went undercover in NAMBLA as a pedophile, and he hung out with these creeps for a long time and helped bust a whole bunch of them through their butts in jail. So I gotta get him on the phone. I gotta get him on our show because he's a great guy. He's written a lot of fiction and books too, but he's one of my heroes, like that. Okay. All right, going on to say on page 184, first, the public should be persuaded that gays are victims of circumstance. Again, this was bolded in the book. That they no more chose their sexual orientation than they did, say, their height, skin color, talents, or limitations. We argue that, for all practical purposes, gays should be considered to have been born gay, even though sexual orientation for most humans seems to be the product of a complex interaction between innate predispositions and environmental factors during childhood and early adolescence. Boom! All right, here you go, guys. Screenshot this one, because here you actually have the authors of this book admitting, number one, that the whole purpose in their marketing to this was to say that they're born gay, but he admits that's not true in this comment. They admit it right there. They admit it. For most humans, seems to be the product of a complex interaction between innate predispositions and environmental factors during childhood and early adolescence. So, just saying. Goes on to say, to suggest in public that homosexuality might be chosen is to open the can of worms labeled, quote, moral choice and sin, unquote, and give the religious intransigents, which would be me, by the way, a stick to beat us with. Straights must be taught that it is as natural for some persons to be homosexual as it is for others to be heterosexual. Wickedness and seduction have nothing to do with it. And since no choice is involved, gayness can be no more blameworthy than straightness. There you go, people. I'm going to read this again because you need to hear it again. Because this is the marketing of homosexuality to America. This is exactly what they've done. To suggest in public that homosexuality might be chosen. So, like, for example, I will say, yeah, there's a choice in that behavior. Maybe not the feelings, but they're not born that way, but they try to convince the world that they are. They've done all this, there's all these battles and research about it, you know, and it's like, nobody is born gay, okay? Nobody's born gay. But here he hits the opposition, the reason why they're saying this. To suggest in public that homosexuality might be chosen is to open the can of worms labeled moral choice and sin, and give the religious intransigents a stick to beat us with. Straights must be taught that it is as natural for some persons to be homosexual as it is for others to be heterosexual. Wickedness and seduction have nothing to do with it. And since no choice is involved, gayness can be no more blameworthy than straightness. The marketing of evil. In fact, it is simply a matter of the odds. It looks like I spelled matter wrong. Anyway, 1 in 10 as to who turns out gay and who's straight. Each heterosexual must be led to realize that he might easily have been born homosexual himself. Now, this is important because the percentage that he's giving here happens to be research based on Alfred Kinsey's research. And Alfred Kinsey is a known sex researcher. He did, and a predator, a homosexual predator. Alfred Kinsey cannot be trusted. He actually did research on men in prison concerning homosexuality, and he also did sexual abuse research on infants as well. And so this 1 in 10 number, this 10% number that good old Oprah Winfrey decided to start promoting way back in the 80s, that when this whole thing was beginning to get marketed to America, is just that. The actual population of the self-identified population of the gay community is 1 to 3%, and for the transgender community is considerably under 1%. So there's this perception still by a lot of uneducated people or uninformed people that 10% or more of the population identifies as LGBT, when in fact they don't. So he goes on to say, second, gays should be portrayed as victims of prejudice. Straights don't fully realize the suffering they bring upon gays, and must be shown graphic pictures of brutalized gays, dramatizations of job and housing insecurity, loss of child custody, public humiliation, etc. For the complete and dismal list, see our agenda for change at the end of chapter 1. By the way, I'm going to read you the agenda for change, but I want to also note here on this page, on page 184, that we have seen all of these things. If you're paying attention, we have seen graphic pictures of brutalized gays, and in most cases, like Matthew Shepard, just as an example, it was a fellow homosexual that did it. Dramatizations of job and housing insecurity, that was one of the big things that they ran on as far as trying to get rights, special rights for the gay community. Loss of child custody, first of all, homosexuals can't bear children on their own. So that whole mess is there. And public humiliation. And actually, I don't think that you can get more public humiliation of homosexuals, especially the men who go in bathhouses and urinate on one another, turn each other on, than that. I mean, they do it to themselves. And don't get mad at me if you are very affirming of this population and their behavior, but that's exactly what they do. And this is exactly why they wanted to market this the way that they did, so that you get all of your eyes off that stuff and you get it onto, fathers know best type characters as your normal homosexual man. Okay? They marketed it. It's here in the book, man. This is their words, not mine, just saying. All right, so this says here, the Waging Peace Agenda for Change Among Straights. Here's the beliefs. I'm just going to read you this. I didn't have time to put it in here. But the current position at the time this was written was this. Number 1, gays don't want or deserve much attention from straights. That was the current belief. But the preferred perception is this. Gays are a valuable part of American society. We should be familiar with their nature, culture, news, and heroes. And guess what they've done? They've done exactly that. I mean, they have done it all. It's brilliant. They have gay websites, gay historians and heroes of theirs, like Harvey Milk, who was also quite creepy in his sexual behavior. Anyway, culture, all this stuff. So they've actually marketed that very successfully. They've done a good job. Yep, they've done a good job. Number 2, gays are fewer in number. I don't know any gays. Well, you know what? Most people still don't. But here's what they prefer. Gays constitute a large minority of our society, and some of my friends and family are gay. Most people don't know gay people. I lived in Southern California, and I'm going to tell you something. When I was in my grad psych class way back in 2000 and whatever it was, I actually presented on the fact that people can change from homosexuality, and I actually asked my class, hey, how many of you have a gay friend? And only 2 or 3 hands went up out of a class of like 30. So don't tell me everybody knows somebody gay, because they don't, because the population is very slow, or very, very small, rather. Gays are easy to spot. That was what the current thing was. Well, yeah, they are easy to spot because they're exactly how he described them earlier. That's why they wanted to change the image. So the preferred thing is they are not. Most of them look just like anyone else. That's not true. Go look on YouTube. Go look on homosexual websites and tell me that that's what your conservative friend looks like. They don't. Number 4, gays become gay because of sin, insanity, and seduction. Interesting choice of words there. The preferred view is sexual feelings are not really chosen by anybody. Homosexuality is just as healthy and natural for some persons as heterosexuality is for others. Really now. AIDS? Primarily a homosexual disease? Just saying. Interesting. I know of a whole book that will tell you the medical ramifications of homosexual sexual behavior that people won't pay attention to because it's by a guy, a legitimate doctor who documented it, and that guy got pushed out of his job. Number 5, gays are kinky sex addicts. So the preferred position is the sex and love lives of most gays and straights today are both similar and conventional. Really now. Because I'm pretty sure my sex life isn't anything like 2 gay men. Just saying. Gays are unproductive, untrustworthy members of society. And the preferred is gays are hardworking, patriotic Americans. Okay? The current belief about gays are suicidally unhappy. The preferred is gays would be as happy as anyone else if we just treat them fairly. No, they won't. They've been given special rights. They've been given homosexual marriage in America, and their suicide rates are way higher than the normal population, and all of that. So it's not going to happen because there's a God-given conviction that they don't want to deal with. Number 8, homosexual acts and intimate public contact are outlawed across roughly 1/2 of the nation. That was the current. Their preferred is all sex acts among consenting adults are decriminalized. No discrimination is permitted between straights and gays in content and application of laws. Well, when all the sodomy laws were repealed, they actually achieved that. And that was unfortunately a bad decision by the people that repealed that. But, the sodomy laws that used to be on the books that actually criminalized sodomy, a couple years back, they successfully won and decriminalized sodomy. Fortunately, though, child sexual abuse is still a crime. Number 9, freedoms of speech and assembly by gays are impeded by public intolerance. Their preferred is gays are provided by special law, if necessary, the same opportunity to speak, including access to mass media and gather as straights currently enjoy. I have to tell you, they've actually outdone themselves in that one. I mean, they have whole networks. They run the media. So, I mean, it's pretty sad, but they've done a good job there. Number 10, rights of gays to work, shelter, and public accommodations are limited by public intolerance. Their preferred is gays are assured by affirmative action, if necessary, equal opportunity in these regards. They have more opportunity than I do. And if the story that I just shared with you earlier isn't any indication of that, then I don't know what is, because, just saying. Number 11, gay couples cannot legally marry nor enjoy property rights therefrom, nor are their rights to parental, natural, or adoptive children secure. Their preferred is gays are permitted all the standard rights of marriage and parenthood. And more. They have that and more given from the Supreme Court of the United States of America, which overturned the will of the people in over 33 states that deem marriage by the voters as one man, one woman, the way God created it. They've done it. They have done it so much so that they put in places like Catholic Charities out of business because they refuse to adopt babies into homosexual couples. Right? Because it goes against their beliefs as a Catholic Christian charity, and they've done it with other things too. So they have actually done this successfully. They're brilliant. Number 12, gays are often taunted, harassed, and brutalized But their preferred is the public no longer sanctions this behavior, which becomes as socially incorrect, discreditable, and repugnant as overt racism or anti-Semitism. First of all, I would say that you should never do that to anybody, period. I don't care if you're gay or straight. You shouldn't be doing that to anybody. That's just bullying. It's wrong. But the fact that we have a whole section in this book about how they have intentionally portrayed this community as victims, and not only victims, but victims of prejudice, with the intent to convert straight people to feel sorry for them by manipulating them, is evidence that that stuff doesn't happen as much as they claim it does. And I've covered so many homosexual and homosexual hate crimes that were false on this show that I'm, whenever I read one, I'm like, okay, who did this? Was it his partner? Was it her partner? I mean, what was it that happened, right? So they have successfully shown us graphic pictures of brutalized gays, dramatizations of job and housing insecurity, loss of child custody, and public humiliation. But let me also point this out, because if you're very astute, you will also notice that the Christians today are the ones who are brutalized. You'll also notice that the Christians today are the ones who are losing their housing and their job privileges and their companies because they refuse to bow to this agenda. The Christians today are losing custody of their children and the right to homeschool and take care of their children and to school them the way that they want. And the Christians today are the ones who are being publicly humiliated. Now, you can't tell me that's not true, because it is true. I cover it all the time on this show. And so they have actually portrayed themselves so well as victims of prejudice, while the church has went, woo, I just flip over on my back. And that's exactly what's happened. Going on. Some fear that a media campaign featuring only ordinary-looking gays would disdain fully disenfranchised drag queens, bull dykes, and other exotic elements of the gay community. This is not our goal, and it is painful to think that such people might begin to feel like second-class members of their own out group. Again, I just continue to quote the guys because he's talking here about those in the homosexual community. That was their fear if they go ahead and they begin to promote themselves as victims, And, well, wait a minute. If we begin to promote everybody as Fathers Know Best look gays, but we forget the actual Leathermen, the dykes, the drag queens, and all that, then that's sad. And yet what they've done very cleverly, RuPaul and others, they have glamorized the drag queen societies, and there's a whole Leatherman sexually deviant thing that goes into gay pride parades. All you gotta do is go over to Americans for Truth about homosexuality.com and look at the work my friend Peter LaBarbera, or go to Brian Kamaker's website, massresistance.org or .com, I'm not sure which one, and look at what they've done. They've taken pictures of all of these parades, and this is exactly what you see in them. You don't see people walking, in the suits the way they're portrayed on TV. You don't.
Yeah, in fact, drag queens have been made so popular, they've got children emulating them.
Yeah.
And being celebrated in popular media for their bravery and being just who they are. And
yeah, it's completely tragic. So, we end this from this book here. Our ultimate objective is to expand straight tolerance so much that even gays who look unconventional can feel safe and accepted. But like it or not, by the very nature of psychological mechanism, desensitization works gradually or not at all. Which, the author here is just basically saying, this is it. Our objective, this is what we want to do. Straight tolerance. So much so that what we have today that is accepted, and if you dare to say this is not normal or natural, you will be bullied by people who have been fully indoctrinated into this, just as I am often told I'm whatever, hateful and intolerant by whoever, for actually even bringing this out. I'm just reading you their words and pointing it out, because the biggest threat to this agenda is Jesus Christ and his church. Okay? I mean, that's the biggest threat to this agenda. And this is why, people who have left homosexuality, bisexuality, who are no longer transgender and all that are being silenced en masse because nobody wants to look at the fact that they're not born that way. There are childhood factors that this is a result of. I'm just saying here, this has been marketed to you. And it's not just America, it's the whole world, people. It's the whole world. This should break our hearts. But hopefully, this will also encourage you to go, oh my gosh, I've been so deceived. I need to start looking at what's being taught to me, and then get your nose in the Bible, get sanctified in his word, and armor up, because it's going to get worse. It's going to get worse, you guys. And it is getting worse because the pedophilia, it's coming. The Before You Act people, they're on it. They're using the exact same playbook. All you got to do is go to beforeyouact.org, read through their site, look what they're doing. They're doing it. They're giving the 10% pedophile thing are born that way. You're not born a pedophile, okay? Give me a break. You're not born a pedophile any more than you are born gay. But they're creating the empathy and the compassion and all that garbage towards people who suffer from the minor attracted person. Oh my gosh, I'm sexually attracted to that person who's a minor. And their whole goal, and they're still trying to do it. NAMBLA, the North American Man-Boy Love Association, and others are still trying to lower the age of consent for adult child sex. They're still trying to do it. And they're gonna. They will. I'm just saying, they're doing it, and, it's nice to see that some people are starting to wake up to it, but, it's clever. It's very clever. So I want to encourage you, if this show or this series has meant anything to you, let me know. Please send me a message. Tell me what it means to you, how you're going to use it. I want to encourage you to go watch these shows, share them out, download them, rip the audio, share it, put it on a DVD and share it to somebody, because they need to know it. And I'm one person with zero, I have no backing, no financial backing. I don't have it to go out and do a massive campaign like this. I just don't have it. But you guys, you can help me get this message out more if you donate to Bible News Radio. You can do that over at BibleNewsRadio.com. You become a pillar of the community. Donate once a month to us. That will help me to know I have some support. I can actually start boosting this on Facebook and maybe putting out some press releases so that more people know about the show. And especially this series, because I think, to me, this is probably one of the best series that I've done. Because I'm able to show you what's going on, and it's their words. It's not mine. It's theirs. I'm telling you what they said. So become a pillar of the community. Also, if you want to donate extra to us, you can help us on our trip next month to Oklahoma. We're going to the Prophecy Watchers Conference. There, we're going to be doing lots of interviews with some of the top prophecy experts in the world, actually. And we would just love your support on that as well. And don't forget, you can also download the free Bible study on our website called The Rapture of the Church from our sponsor here, from our sponsor Ariel Ministries, which we also have a 20% off coupon. You can go to ariel.org and you can download, or actually you can buy anything on their website, but if you use the coupon code Bible News, you can save 20% on anything. And Israel Betrayed is the current book offering that they've asked us to help you promote. So that is one thing that we encourage you to check out. And that lets them know that you appreciate what we do. And you're going to get hardcore, good, theological, solid biblical teaching from Ariel. I mean, they're giving you their free Bible studies there. And the Rapture of the Church is one you definitely want to get. So if you haven't gotten that yet, just go over there, BibleNewsRadio.com. And lastly, but certainly not least, you guys know I am with Legal Shield. If If you guys need some identity theft protection, which you do, because you do, trust me, and legal protection, set up a time and talk to me about it. We'll get you all signed up. I've talked a little bit more about that in other shows, and we'll be talking more about it later. But if you are not yet protected with this insurance, you need to be, and you definitely need to protect your identity, for sure. So you can go to bit.ly/protectme, or I actually prefer in this case, you just come to me directly through whatever social media you see me on, and just message me and say, hey, I want to talk to you. Tell me what it is. There's a gazillion perks, by the way, and the perks pay for the membership. I mean, it's that good. And the other thing, too, is join my text message list. A number of you are on it already, and I really appreciate it. All you got to do is text the term Bible News to 33222, and I send out a text message in the morning, give or take, what time, give or take my schedule, and right before the show, so you guys know, hey, the show's on. And it's a text message, so it's not long. It takes you a minute, not even a minute to read. So if you haven't joined that yet, please join it, and you can communicate with me via text, which is really super cool. Once you're on that list, I try to answer my messages as fast as I can when I'm available. Kind of busy, but I do get back to everybody that messages me back. And by the way, if you're on that text message list and you're still watching the show, do me a favor and text me again today. Just text me and tell me what you thought of the show today, because I appreciate your feedback on what we do, because it helps me to know how you are, receiving it. So there you have it. I honestly can't believe this hour went by so fast, but it did. And again, if you haven't seen the whole series yet, go over to our YouTube page, which is youtube.com/Bible News Radio. I have a whole playlist there, The Marketing of Homosexuality to America. This will be added right after the show. That's 6 hours of education that you're not going to get anywhere else. So check it out, okay? All right, people. Tomorrow is Thursday, I think. So we will be back tomorrow, Lord willing, with another episode of the show. And I just want to say thank you again for tuning in. Remember, be bold, people. Stand up and go with God, because He loves you. Yeah, He does. See you tomorrow.